gas prices, food prices, everything is higher. What are you expecting from his tenure?
I mean, he's going to be feeling a lot of resistance within the Fed. The Fed has the wrong model, according to many economists, including myself, that they think that economic growth leads to inflation. We have massive amount of evidence that economic growth doesn't necessarily lead to inflation. It depends how it's generated. But they have that model in mind and therefore think that, oh, wow, we have increasing energy prices. Shouldn't we therefore make credit more expensive, which sounds strange to a normal person, but that's how the Fed thinks about things, essentially, that only things are driven by demand and not supply. So I think he has an uphill battle in convincing his colleagues against that framework that they've been using for decades. But I hope he can do it. I hope he brings more attention to this issue, that the Fed model is clearly not the right one, and therefore potentially is an explanation for why they haven't been able to reach their target of 2% during the whole Powell tenure, essentially.
That's such a great point, Tomas, because the way the Fed is operating, it seems very counterintuitive to what we'd want, which is growth in our nation. That should just allow us for even more growth. So why are they stymieing this? I think it is, to your point, going to be a difficult time for Kevin Warsh, especially given the fact that Jerome Powell is still there. So there's still that relic of an individual who has led us very much astray in terms of our policies. What do you expect, Alan, as well as the fact that we're hearing rumblings about a hike instead of a cut?
Yeah, well, I want to point out one important figure when we're talking about inflation, because I mentioned the 3.8% figure earlier. But to put that into context, under the Biden administration, we hit 9.1%. So people have short memories. They forget how bad things were. And frankly, we've hit major market milestones this year. The S&P 500 crossed 7,000 for the first time in April. The Dow crossed to the 50,000 mark in February. NASDAQ has led the rally, driven by artificial intelligence and tech stocks. And so we've got this booming stock market. And, I guess the concern is a K-shaped economy where higher income households build wealth while some working families struggle with rising costs. So, that's a concern. I can tell you the president is looking at every possible way to help working families and to try to improve some of those figures and get people to where they can invest as well. That was sort of the motivation behind the Trump accounts for children.
I definitely respect you as a professional as well as your opinion, but the saying or the talking point of it's not as high as it was under Biden, you can't take that to the poll as a message in November. Why? Because the American people are paying high at the pump, as we talked about, high at the grocery store, higher costs in terms of child care. People don't want to hear about Biden in the past. They want to know, what are you going to do for me now into the future? And Tomas, when you look at this current environment, GDP, national debt, we can't continue down this road, this path, if you will, as a nation. So what are you seeing? I want you to be optimistic, but I also want you to be brutally honest with the American people. How do you see things shaping up this year?
I mean, the sentiment is at record lows of consumers, but that's puzzling because their behavior is not at record lows. They keep spending and they keep acting in a way that looks very optimistic. We're actually, in a historical context, at a low unemployment level. We have GDP growth that's robust. Some predict 4% even now coming up in the next quarter. Essentially, that's up. We'll see if that actually happens. So the economy is not bad. The sentiment is horrible, and people are feeling pessimistic about an economy which, with traditional measures, is not a bad economy. The debt issue is real. I think you pointed to that as well. That is a real concern that neither party has successfully attacked. Republicans are as bad as Democrats in ranking up deficits, essentially. And that's a problem. The reckoning will come, no doubt. In bond markets, some people argue it's already there by basically demanding higher yields. But that day will come, and it's just a matter of a crisis inducing Congress to do something.
Yeah, Alan, your analysis as to where we're heading, and also to John's point, people are feeling pain, whether it's at the pump or beef prices, as we keep talking about. But in terms of the overall economy, GDP numbers are strong. Forward-looking guidance is looking pretty good. So your thoughts?
Yeah, GDP numbers are looking good. Employment numbers have come out better than expected for 2 months in a row. I think we really need those pro-growth policies, and this is not something that can always just happen at the federal level. People always want to say, we need to do this through legislation or that through legislation, but, we need to deregulate housing and energy to lower costs, of course, but a lot of things like housing policy take place at the local level. We just passed this housing bill, and it's a mixed bag, frankly. There's some good, there's some bad in it. But, it doesn't tackle some basic things that you would take place at, your city council meeting or your county council meeting. And so we are always looking for this panacea, this single fix. And, there's just not one of those out there. So there are many, many factors at play. Housing is clearly a serious issue for many families. And, I am in a house where I got a great interest rate many years ago. But if I were to want to sell my house now and try to, it's like 6.5% or something, it would disincentivize me to move. And if I were a young person, I would frankly probably rent and just hope that those rates would come down.
Well, you know what? If we don't get this oil moving and these prices lowered, voters will not be incentivized to go to the polls. And if the other side is elected, that could actually spell worse trouble. So this needs to be worked out at any point between now and now. Thanks, Tomas and Alan. We appreciate your commentary.
Thanks, gentlemen. Have a great